You ever hear a story that sounds too old to be real, but too specific to be fake? That's how it started with Hookman. Not a ghost, not a monster. Something else. He doesn't haunt places. He follows people. Shows up in the margins behind your car, under the stairs, through the screen. And by the time you notice him, you've already been seen. This series isn't about legends. It's about what gets left behind, the burn marks, the footage, the scratches on glass, and the people who lived just long enough to tell you what they saw. 7 stories, 7 first-hand accounts, different towns, different nights, but they all end the same way, with a hook. Before we jump into this thrilling story, make sure to give this video a like and hit that subscribe button. It really helps me stay motivated to create even better content. Story 1. The sound of metal on glass. It was supposed to be just a party, the kind of dumb, slightly reckless thing everyone does in senior year. Cheap drinks, bad music, people you don't really like, pretending you're all best friends for one night. I didn't even want to go. I just went because Connor begged me to. And when you've been with someone 2 years, you pick your battles. This one didn't seem worth fighting. It became worth it when we got into a fight halfway through. He'd been texting some girl, not just any girl, but her. And when I called him out, he said I was overreacting. Of course I was. That's always the defense, right? You're being crazy. You're imagining things. You're ruining the night. So I left. I didn't even have my own car, just his dad's beat-up Toyota that he let me borrow sometimes. But I grabbed the keys off the counter and left. Pushed past a hallway full of vape smoke and red Solo cups and went out into the cold. It had started to rain, that kind of fine, constant drizzle that turns everything slick and blurry. My boots sank into the gravel as I walked toward the back lot. The trees loomed just behind it, a jagged line of black against a gray sky. No lights. No people. Good. I didn't want people. I slid into the car, locked the doors, and sat there in silence for a minute, just listening to the rain hit the roof in soft, erratic beats. My heart was still racing. I didn't cry, though. I'm not the crying type. Just sat there and stared at the steering wheel and thought, I hate him. I actually hate him. And then the radio turned on. I swear to God, I didn't touch it. 1 second the car was quiet, the next static, then a voice. One of those emergency broadcasts, the kind they test sometimes. Only this one wasn't a test. Escaped earlier this evening from the Green Hollow Psychiatric Facility. The suspect is male, approximately 6 feet tall, last seen wearing a dark raincoat. He is believed to be armed with a metal hook in place of his right hand. I froze. Extremely dangerous. If seen, do not approach. Authorities advise residents near the North Ridge area to remain indoors and lock all vehicles. North Ridge. That was here. I reached for my phone. No signal. Of course not. The service out here always sucked, and the storm made it worse. I leaned forward, trying to get even one bar holding the phone up like an idiot, and that's when I heard it. Scroosh. It was soft, barely a whisper, like a coat hanger brushing against metal. My first thought was that a branch had fallen and scraped the hood, but then it happened again. Louder this time. Scrooch. Tap. From the back of the car. I didn't move. I just sat there, heart hammering against my ribs, trying to tell myself it was wind or rain or something explainable. But the sound kept going. Not random anymore. Rhythmic, like something was being dragged along the side of the car in a straight, measured line. I turned in my seat. The windows were fogging up from the inside. I wiped the back one with my sleeve leaning close. That's when I saw it. A shape. No, a figure. Crawling across the trunk, not walking. crawling. Belly down like an animal, one arm stretched forward to pull the other, glinting faintly with something silver. The hook. I gasped, not a scream, just a sharp intake of breath, and fumbled with the ignition. My hands were shaking so badly, I dropped the keys twice before getting them in. The engine turned, coughed, started. The radio blared again. I slammed the volume knob down, jammed the car into reverse, and looked up just in time to see his face against the windshield. Pale, wet, expressionless, eyes dark and unblinking, and the hook scraping slowly across the glass, leaving a thin, wet trail behind it, like blood or rain or both. I threw the car into drive and hit the gas. Tires spun in the wet gravel before catching, and I lurched forward so hard I nearly bit my tongue. The figure rolled off the hood and vanished into the dark as I tore down the narrow path, headlights bouncing over potholes and trees. I didn't stop driving for 15 minutes, not until I hit a gas station, back near the main road, with lights and people and cameras. I parked under the brightest floodlight I could find, locked the doors and sat there shaking. Eventually, someone came out and asked if I was okay. I lied and said I'd almost hit a deer. Cops came the next morning. They'd found something, not in the woods, but in the trunk of the car. When they opened it, they found scratch marks, deep ones, long and curved, like something or someone had been inside. Only it wasn't empty. There was a body, a girl, my age, reported missing 2 days earlier, still warm. They asked me if I knew her. I said no. They asked why her body would be in our trunk. I didn't know. I still don't. But sometimes when I close my eyes at night, I still see the hook sliding across the glass. And I still hear the sound. Before I continue with story 2, go ahead and like this video. It lets me know you're still out there. And if you're brave enough to hit that subscribe button, it tells me one thing. You've got the guts to stick around for what's coming next. Because the stories are only going to get darker from here. All right, let's dive into next story. Story 2. The girl from the app. I matched with her on a Tuesday. Her name was L. Just L, no last initial. No Instagram link, no Snapchat. Her photos were blurry, maybe on purpose, maybe not. One was her sitting on a dock at night. Another was a silhouette under string lights. The last was a selfie in a mirror face, half hidden by a phone with a cracked screen. But her bio got me. Hate small talk. Let's skip to the part where we don't have to pretend we're normal. I messaged her. She replied in under a minute. The conversation wasn't flirty. It was weird. She asked questions like, do you ever feel like someone's following you, but there's no sound? And what's the last thing you'd say if you knew no one would ever hear it by Friday we'd agreed to meet? She chose the spot Owlbrook Park right before dusk. The place was familiar but wrong for a first date. It wasn't romantic. It was forgotten, the kind of place high schoolers used to drink in years ago before the fences went up. I pulled in just after 7. The gravel lot had a single light yellow and flickering and an old bench under a cracked shelter. She was already there, sitting with her knees tucked up to her chest hoodie, up head down. I parked a few feet away and hesitated. Something about how still she was made, the air feel heavy, like I was interrupting something sacred. She didn't look up until I opened the car door. No smile. Just, you came. Her voice was softer than I imagined, too soft for the wind around us. I sat down beside her, leaving a safe gap between us. We didn't talk for a few minutes. I looked around, trying to play it cool. The woods behind the bench stretched far branches, black against the fading orange sky. No other cars. No kids. No dogs barking. just the sound of wind, pushing leaves in tight little circles on the ground. I asked where she was from. She shrugged, said nowhere important. Then she took out her phone. A notification popped up. I caught a glimpse of it before she tilted the screen away. Unknown device nearby, 2 meters. She froze. "You okay?" I asked. She didn't answer, just stared at the trees. Her hands tightened around the phone. Then it buzzed again, this time louder, harsher, like an alarm that didn't belong to any app I knew. She shoved it in her hoodie pocket, stood up and whispered, "We need to go." I didn't ask questions. Something in her voice dropped into my stomach like a stone. She walked toward my car. I followed, feeling the weight of the dark settling faster than it should. My phone buzzed as I hit unlock a new notification from the app. El Tuhem away is now within range. Say hi, but I was already looking at her. So, what the hell was standing behind her? There was something behind her. Not a person. Not fully. It stood half in shadow, half in the faint beam of the parking light. Too tall spine arched like it didn't understand how to stand upright. One arm hung limp, the other curled forward in a hook that shimmered like polished bone. The metal caught the light in a way nothing natural should. Not glinting. Breathing. I opened my mouth to shout, but Elle turned first. She didn't scream, she didn't flinch. She just whispered, "He found me." Then she bolted, not toward the car, into the woods. I looked back. The thing didn't chase her. It turned to me, and I ran. I dove into the driver's seat and slammed the lock button so hard my knuckle cracked. My breathing was already ragged. The thing hadn't moved, not fast at least, but I could still feel it, like cold sweat crawling under my skin. My headlights flickered once. Then the radio clicked on. No music, just static. Then a voice. Male. Low. Wrong. Still 2 meters. I shut it off, slammed it with my fist until the static died. I checked my phone. The dating app was still open, but Elle's profile was gone. Like it had never existed. No messages. No match history. Not even the app name looked the same. Just a white screen and the words, "You are now within range." Something thumped the back of the car. I threw it in reverse without thinking. Tires shrieked as I backed up, fishtailed, and almost clipped the bench. Then I slammed it into drive and peeled out of the lot, headlights bouncing off trees like ghosts. I didn't look back. Not until the second thump. It came from the roof. I swerved hard. Whatever was up there rolled to the side. I hit the brakes, skidding to a stop on the shoulder, and heard something slide down the windshield, slow and heavy. That's when I saw the hook. It dragged itself across the glass, not striking sparks, cutting. Clean, effortless, leaving a curved white gash like a fingernail on ice. Then the face came into view. It wasn't Elle. It wasn't even human. Pale skin stretched too tight, eyes too far apart, and a mouth that didn't smile but opened just enough to let steam out into the cold. I floored it. Whatever it was, it didn't cling. It slid off the roof and vanished into the dark. I didn't stop until I saw other cars, other lights. I pulled into the nearest gas station, shaking sweating hands, white-knuckled on the wheel. A cop happened to be there. I ran straight to him, told him everything, even if I sounded insane. I begged him to come check the park. He did. Brought backup. They found nothing. No girl, no monster, no bench, not even the shelter I swore we'd been under. Just a chain-link gate across the path with a sign, Owlbrook Park, permanently closed since 2019. They asked if I'd been drinking. I hadn't. They checked my phone. The app was gone, not deleted, erased. like it never existed. No record of download, no activity. I didn't sleep that night, or the one after. Then a few days later, a package arrived. No name, no return address. Inside a cracked phone case like the one from Elle's mirror selfie. And a photo, black and white, faded. But I knew what I was looking at. It was the bench, the same one, only older, wetter. And sitting on it back to the camera was me. Me sitting beside a shadow with no face. I checked the back of the photo. Scribbled in jagged, shaky ink were the words, 2 meters is close enough. I never reinstalled a dating app again. But sometimes when I leave my house, I get a notification. Not from my phone, not from anything I can find. Just a voice, faint metallic in the back of my head, whispering, "You are now within range." And that's the end of story 2. Still with me, if you are drop 1 or 11 in the comments, so I know you're one of the brave ones, still here, still listening to my twisted little tales. In the next video, I'll shout out some of your names as a thank you for your courage. Now, let's move on to the next story. Story 3, Graveyard Shift. I've worked the graveyard shift at the Hollow Creek gas station for 4 years now. It's not exactly a dream job, but it pays better than most places. And out here in the middle of nowhere, you take what you can get. The station sits right off Route 71, a long, cracked stretch of highway that cuts through miles of woods, no towns for 30 minutes either way. We get truckers, night owls, and the occasional drifter. Most nights are quiet, boring even, but not that one. It was a Tuesday, late October, cold but not freezing yet. The air had that kind of weight to it, like something was waiting to happen. I'd just finished restocking the beer cooler and was sitting behind the register, sipping gas station coffee and flipping through an old hunting magazine. The security monitors were running, but they rarely showed anything more exciting than a raccoon nosing around the trash bins. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the pump alert dinged. Someone had pulled up to pump 3. I glanced at the monitor. An old car, one of those big-bodied Fords from the 80s, rusted-out headlights, barely functional. The driver's side door opened slowly, and a figure stepped out. I leaned forward. He was tall, lanky, wearing a long, dark coat that hung off his frame like it didn't belong. A hood covered most of his face. The way he moved was off. Like every step was measured, too careful. I couldn't see his right hand. It stayed tucked inside the coat. He didn't pump gas, he just stood there. 10 seconds. 20. A full minute. Then, without turning, he looked straight up at the camera. Not the pump, not the building. The camera. I felt it like a chill in my spine, a pressure behind my eyes. I looked away, heart thudding, and checked the feed again. Static. Not just on pump 3, all of them. The screens glitched out in that old TV way, full of fuzz and white noise, then went black. That had never happened before. I tapped the keyboard. Nothing responded. Then I looked up. He was gone. No car, no figure. Just the pump swaying slightly like it had been nudged. I stood up, flicked the front lights brighter, and stared out the window. The lot was empty. I checked the side mirrors, the shadows between the shelves. Nothing. Then the door chime rang. But no one had opened the door. It was just open. Barely. A few inches of cold air bleeding in. I stepped around the counter and walked slowly toward it, trying to convince myself it was wind. That I hadn't locked it properly. That maybe someone had come in and I hadn't heard it. The moment I reached the doorway, the lights flickered. Then the smell hit me. Rust, old pennies, and something wet. I looked down. Just outside the threshold on the mat was a single metal hook. Bent. Worn. covered in something thick and dark. Blood. I didn't touch it. I didn't breathe. Just stared at the thing lying there, like it had been left for me, the way you'd leave a dog's leash by the door after it ran away. I could see the curve of it, not shiny like you'd expect, but dulled, almost blackened, like it had been pulled from a fire. The blood wasn't fresh. It had dried in streaks down the metal, thick and crusted near the base. Then the freezer lights shut off. All of them. With a click that sounded way too loud. And something moved in aisle 2. I couldn't see it directly, just the shadow it left behind as it passed under the emergency light near the soda machine. Not fast, not even stealthy, just deliberate, like someone walking through their own house in the dark. I backed toward the counter. The door behind me was still open, just enough to feel the wind tug at my shirt. I thought about running. I should have. But something in me locked up. Not fear, not exactly. Something worse. Recognition. Like I'd seen this play out before, just not in waking life. The figure stepped out from between the shelves. Still tall, still wearing that long coat. But now I could see the hood had fallen back. His face, if you could call it that, was pale like old wax and too smooth. No hair, no brows, just those wide, deep-set eyes like boiled glass. They didn't blink. His left hand hung loosely at his side. His right sleeve was empty, but not quite. It bulged at the end, stretched thin around a shape that curved inward, like a hook shoved inside a glove. He raised that arm. Not fast, not like an attack, more like a greeting, a wave, the kind people give before boarding a train when they know they're leaving for good. The camera above the register exploded. Glass showered the counter. The screen went black. I ducked instinctively and heard the wet slap of something metal hitting tile. When I looked back up, he was gone. No footsteps, no exit chime, just gone. And then the radio kicked on. It hadn't worked in months, but there it was, crackling to life, with a low, warbling static that rose like wind through broken trees. Then a voice, sharp and rusted. 2 more. Mile marker 71. I stared at it, heart hammering, sweat freezing on my skin. Mile marker 71 was 10 minutes up the road. I grabbed the phone, called it in. The dispatcher asked me 3 times to repeat myself, then told me officers would check it out. They did. A wreck. Pickup truck. Flipped in a ditch. 2 passengers inside, a man and a woman, both dead. No sign of impact. No tire marks. Just deep gouges on the roof and windows, as if something curved had raked across them. They ruled it an accident. I knew better. I checked the pumps later that morning. Pump 3 had a crack in the screen. Not from heat or weather or even vandalism. It looked like it had been split. A fine, perfect arc, like someone had dragged a crescent blade across it. I tried to pull the footage. Nothing. Every file from that night corrupted. Every single one. Except one still frame, just one from 2:18 a.m. It showed me standing behind the counter. And behind me, in the reflection of the freezer glass, was a figure in a long coat raising something silver in the air. They say you imagine things during late shifts. That isolation makes your brain see things it wants to explain. But I wasn't hallucinating. I still have that still frame. I printed it. I keep it in the back of the cash drawer. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, when I work the 2 to 6 shift and the lights flicker, the photo changes, just a little. The figure moves closer. Story 4, the last live stream. I wasn't even supposed to be watching. That's the part I keep coming back to. It wasn't a channel I followed, and the live stream didn't show up in my feed. It just started autoplaying on my phone while I was brushing my teeth, like some glitch. The app wasn't TikTok or YouTube or Twitch, just a blank black screen with a red dot and the word live. No username, no chat, just video. At first, I thought it was one of those fake horror streams, kids staging a ghost hunt in a haunted place. 4 of them college age, 2 guys, 2 girls, all of them wearing cheap Halloween gear. One had a plastic scythe, one had fake blood smeared on her hoodie. It looked like they were filming from a phone, propped up on a folding chair. The setting was what caught my attention. It wasn't a house or graveyard or anything like that. It was a parking garage, top floor, open air, surrounded by empty office buildings. The kind of place no one uses after 6 p.m. Wind echoed across the concrete, and you could see the city lights blinking in the distance. The group stood in a loose circle around a spray-painted symbol on the ground, jagged and crude, like it was copied from memory. One of the guys was holding a phone, reading something off the screen. Latin-sounding nonsense, probably ripped from a Reddit thread. The others were giggling, trying to look scared, playing it up for views that weren't even coming in. I almost swiped away. But then the stream glitched. Just for a second. The video stuttered, pixelated. The audio dropped out and came back warped like it had passed through water. And when it cleared, something was different. The sky behind them wasn't dark blue anymore. It was black, not night black, void black, like the feed had lost access to the real world. No one in the group noticed. They kept going, pretending to summon something. The guy with the phone dropped it mid-sentence, laughing like he was too drunk to care. The girl with the fake blood picked it up, holding it close to her face to talk to the camera. That's when I saw it. Behind her. At first, just a shimmer, a distortion in the background, like heat waves above asphalt. Then a shape. Tall, thin, motionless. The others didn't see it. The chat wasn't working. I tried to take a screenshot, but the interface wouldn't respond. My phone vibrated once, then again, and a new notification appeared at the top of the screen. You are viewer number 1. The stream cut to static, only for half a second. Then it resumed. Different angle now, closer, lower, like someone had picked up the camera and moved it without anyone realizing. It was pointed at the same girl, but her expression had changed. No more joking. Her smile was frozen wide and twitching, and her eyes weren't looking at the others. They were staring just past the phone. At me. Like she could see me through the screen. I dropped my phone. It didn't fall far, just onto the edge of the sink, but the screen cracked and the stream stopped. Not paused, not minimized. It was just gone. The app closed itself, and I couldn't find it in my recent tabs. No title, no account, nothing. I stood there for a moment, toothbrush still in hand, heart thudding in my throat like it wanted out. I told myself it was a prank, a filter, something pre-recorded that tricked me into thinking it was live. Then the notification came back. Same words. You are viewer number 1. No app attached, just a gray pop-up that vanished after 2 seconds. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. My room felt wrong too. Still too quiet, like there was something heavy in the air that hadn't been there before. I kept my phone face down and tried not to look at any screens. Every reflection felt dangerous, like the stream could come back through it. The next day I checked local news. Nothing. No accidents, no disappearances, no mention of kids filming in a parking garage. I searched Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, any clue that someone else had seen what I saw. But it was like the entire thing had been made just for me. Until I got the second video. It arrived as a file transfer, no sender listed. Just popped into my downloads folder, around 2:37 a.m. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at the name, Last Or Stream MP4. When I finally played it, I almost dropped my phone again. It picked up where the live stream had left off. Only now the camera was moving, slow, unsteady, like someone was carrying it through the garage. The symbol on the ground was gone, smeared, almost burned into the concrete, and 2 of the kids were missing. Only the guy with the scythe remained. He was lying flat on his back, staring up with glassy eyes, and a mouth stuck open mid-scream. His hoodie was soaked through, not with blood, with something dark and glossy like oil. His chest wasn't moving. The camera turned toward the exit ramp. The girl with the blood-painted hoodie was standing at the edge of the garage, looking out at the city. Only, the city was gone, replaced by an endless black void. No lights, no buildings, just that shimmering heat distortion air, as if the night had peeled itself open. She didn't move, but her mouth opened, and from it came a sound that made me want to smash my phone on the ground, a low, grinding, metal-on-metal screech. Not human, not animal. Something like steel screaming under pressure, like a hook being dragged across glass over and over. The camera turned again, and there he was, Hookman. Not running, not leaping, just walking slow and steady toward the camera, 1 foot dragging slightly. The hook gleamed even in the darkness, reflecting light that didn't exist. I paused the video, tried to exit. My phone wouldn't respond. I held the power button. Nothing. The video started playing in reverse, every frame distorted. The images, twisted faces, melting into static. The sound warped into a low hum that vibrated through my teeth. When the video ended, the screen went black. Then the front camera turned on. I saw myself. Behind me, in the blurry, low-light reflection, was a shape. Tall, coated, hooked. The phone shut off on its own. I threw it in a drawer and haven't touched it since. But last night, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a burner phone, already powered on. 1 single notification waiting on the lock screen. You are viewer number 2. Story 5. Under the car. It was supposed to be a quick stop. I'd stayed late on campus, finishing a group project. One of those awkward ones where nobody really talks and everything takes 3 times longer than it should. By the time we wrapped, it was close to 2 a.m. My ride had already left, and the campus shuttles had stopped running, so I decided to take the shortcut through the lower lot to get to the overnight garage where my car was parked. I hate that garage. It's old, probably built in the 70s, all exposed concrete and flickering overhead lights. It always smells like wet cement and burnt plastic. And at night it feels wrong. Like it's buried too deep. Like if something happened to you down there, no one would ever hear. Still, I didn't have much choice. My car was on B2, the second basement level, and I wanted to get home. I made my way down the first flight of stairs, listening to my own footsteps echo around me. The stairwell lights buzzed overhead like dying insects. I pressed the button to open the metal door and stepped into B2, empty, just rows and rows of silent sleeping cars, most of them faculty. Only a few student permits made it down this far. I was one of the lucky ones. Lucky, that's what they called it anyway. I was halfway to my car when my key fob blinked red. Dead. I swore under my breath and tried it again. Nothing. I pulled out the emergency key and manually unlocked the door. The moment I opened it, the dome light flickered, then died. The battery was toast, and that's when I heard it. Tap, tap, drag. It wasn't loud, more like a whisper against the concrete. I froze and scanned the garage. Nothing moved. No cars turned on. The security mirror in the far corner reflected only the rows behind me. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I ducked into the driver's seat, locked the doors out of instinct, and tried the ignition. The engine clicked once, then again, then nothing. Dead. That's when the light above me went out. Not flickered, not dimmed, just cut off, like someone had flipped a switch on that one specific light. And I saw something move behind the car. I didn't scream, I didn't breathe. I just slid lower in my seat, keeping my head below the window line. I grabbed my phone and opened the flashlight, aiming it toward the rear view. Nothing. The beam caught only dust, empty space, and the faint reflection of my own wide eyes. I heard the sound again. Tap, tap, drag, but this time closer, right next to the passenger side. I didn't dare sit up. My heart was hammering so loud, I thought whoever was out there could hear it. I slid my hand down to the floorboard, fingertips trembling, and felt for anything, a pen, my charger, a wrench, anything I could use if I had to. But there was nothing. The sound came again. Only now it was on the driver's side. Tap, tap, drag, followed by silence. Then something scraped against the door handle. I bit down hard on my knuckle to keep from gasping. My phone was still in my lap, flashlight pointed toward the floor, the beam shaking with every tiny tremor of my hand. I inched it toward the window and tilted it just enough to bounce the light upward. A shadow passed by. Not fast, not running, crawling. It was so close I could see the edge of it through the glass, a coat hem soaked through at the bottom, dragging along the ground, and beneath it a bare hand pulling forward. The other sleeve was empty, the end of it bulging with something curved and sharp. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a soft thud, the light flickering wildly as it rolled toward the pedals. I reached down for it fast, then froze. The car rocked, just once, like something had brushed against it or slid beneath it. And then I heard breathing. Not mine. Right under me. Shallow. Wet, like someone struggling to breathe through a collapsed chest. I grabbed the door handle about to bolt when something touched the underside of the driver's seat from below. I felt it through the cushion. Cold. Hard. Scraping upward like a dull knife. I couldn't move. Couldn't think. So I did the only thing my body would allow. I slid down off the seat and onto the floor, curled tight in the cramped footwell. I turned the flashlight off. Total darkness now. All I could hear was my own blood in my ears and that breathing. It grew louder, and then it stopped. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. Maybe longer. My body screamed for air, for movement, for anything. And then came the sound that broke me. Tap. Tap. Clink. It was the sound of metal against pavement. Just beyond the car. Slow. Measured. Hooked. And then footsteps. Walking away. I waited a full 5 minutes before I cracked the door open and slipped out. I didn't stand up. I rolled under the car and out the opposite side palms, scraping against the concrete. I didn't stop. I ran full speed up the stairwell, heart exploding, ears ringing. I didn't stop until I reached the street. I flagged down a night patrol car, told them someone was in the garage, maybe a vagrant, maybe dangerous. They searched, found nothing. But when I went back to get my car towed the next morning, the garage staff looked pale. The tech said they found something attached under my car, taped near the exhaust pipe. A USB drive. Inside were videos, footage of me, walking, driving, eating in the campus cafe. All taken from a low angle, through windows, from behind benches, hidden corners. He had been following me for weeks, But the worst part wasn't the videos, it was the file names. Each one had a timestamp, each one labeled by location, and the last one, Under the Car Final MP4. Story Sikwa, 3:03 a.m. I live alone, not in a creepy, off-the-grid kind of way, just a normal one-bedroom rental in a quiet cul-de-sac at the edge of town. I work remotely, keep to myself, and honestly enjoy the silence most days. No noisy neighbors, no unexpected knocks, no drama. Just me, my laptop, and the steady hum of nothing. Until last Thursday. I'd been up late finishing a video call with my boyfriend. We live 2 hours apart and do these late-night chats pretty often, sometimes watching the same movie at the same time, synced up over FaceTime. That night it was a dumb horror movie. Something about a haunted motel and a killer with scissors for hands. We laughed at how bad the effects were. He signed off around 2:40 a.m., said he'd call again after work tomorrow. I left the lights on, brushed my teeth, and crashed on the couch with a blanket. At 3:03 a.m., my phone rang. I remember that exact time because the screen lit up next to my face, blinding me in the dark. Unknown caller. I almost let it go to voicemail, but some part of me, the part still wired into late-night anxiety, made me answer. Silence. I waited. Hello, more silence. Then, breathing. Not static, not noise, actual breathing. Slow, wet, like someone pressing their face to the mic without speaking. I hung up. Not even 5 seconds later, a photo arrived. No message, just an image file. I opened it. The angle made no sense at first. It was blurry low light, looked like a ceiling. But then I realized it was my ceiling. The popcorn texture, the spot near the smoke alarm where I'd patched a hole. The photo had been taken from behind me, from inside the room. While I was sleeping on the couch, I bolted upright and spun around. Nothing. No open windows, no door creaks. Just the faint light from the hallway nightlight, casting everything in that strange, pale orange. I walked through the apartment with a kitchen knife in one hand and my phone in the other, checking every door, every closet, even the dryer. Nothing. I told myself it was a prank, a weird airdrop thing. Maybe someone in the complex messing around. I went back to the couch and noticed something I hadn't before. A drag mark on the floor, thin but visible in the dust, like someone had dragged something sharp in a perfect arc around the coffee table. Not once. Not chaotic. A single, careful half-moon shape. I took a photo of it with my phone. Flash on. Then I looked closer and saw a partial footprint next to it. Barefoot. I backed away from the footprint slowly, as if moving too fast might call whatever left it back into the room. My mind kept replaying the image of that hooked drag mark and the half-human foot beside it. I didn't recognize either, not from any horror movie, not from any urban legend. It felt older than that, personal. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. At dawn, I checked the security cam app for my apartment. I'd installed a cheap smart camera over the front door months ago, mostly out of habit packages, getting stolen the usual. The footage was stored on the cloud and usually only triggered by motion. I loaded the timeline. There was no motion between 11:30 p.m. and 3:05 a.m. Then at exactly 3:03 a.m., there was a single thumbnail. I tapped play. The video was 6 seconds long. The audio was dead silent. The clip showed my front door, slowly swinging open. From the inside. No one visible. No hand. No wind. Just the door opening itself, pausing, then gently closing again. I sat there in the morning light screen, shaking in my hand, stomach frozen. I didn't know who to call. Not the police. What would I say? That a ghost unlocked my door and walked around barefoot, dragging a hook. I deleted the clip. I deleted the photo of the footprint. I tried to pretend it didn't happen. But the next night at exactly 3:03 a.m., it happened again. This time I was ready. I didn't sleep. I sat upright on the couch, phone in hand, camera app open. I kept the hallway lights on. I even wedged a metal rod between the door and the wall so it couldn't be opened from the outside. But still at 3:03 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown caller. I didn't answer. It rang again and again. The third time, I turned the phone off entirely. Hard shut down. I tossed it across the room. That's when I heard the dragging sound, but not from the front door. From inside the hallway, I stood up, heart-pounding feet frozen to the floor. The light in the hall flickered, and then I saw it. A shadow stretched long across the far wall, not cast by me. It was taller, broader, with a slight twitch to the shoulder, like one side hung lower. One hand moved at its side. The other lifted into view and ended in a shape that was unmistakably curved. Hooked. It didn't walk. It glided like its feet weren't touching the floor. The dragging sound came anyway, that horrible metallic scrape echoing through drywall. I ducked behind the couch and held my breath. The scraping stopped. I peeked over the armrest. The living room was empty, but the hallway light had gone out completely. Then came the tap. 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 Right on the back window, the one behind the couch. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. The reflection in the TV screen told me enough. He was standing there, on the second floor, looking in. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember grabbing my keys. I just remember running barefoot to the car and locking the doors until the sun came up. When I came back that afternoon, the apartment looked untouched, except for one thing. On the floor by the couch, arranged in a neat little line, were 4 human toes. Just the toes. Perfectly severed. Like someone had left them for me. Story 7. Last night at Camp Black Hollow. I was 15, the summer we stayed at Camp Black Hollow. Not the kind of camp with archery and arts and crafts. This was a survival camp, the kind your parents ship you off to when they think too much screen time is melting your brain. It was deep in the mountains of Vermont, surrounded by nothing but pine moss and silence. No cell service, no GPS, no way out unless someone came to pick you up. There were 10 of us in the group. 5 boys, 5 girls, 2 counselors, both ex-military. Everything about it was meant to be real. We slept in our own tents, built our own fires, even filtered our own water from the stream nearby. That last night we set up camp near a dried-out riverbed. The sun dipped early behind the ridge, and by the time dinner was over it was already dark. We made a fire ring, sat around roasting what was left of the marshmallows, and someone suggested we tell stories. Of course, we ended up talking about local legends. That's when Alex, the kind of guy who always knew something no one else did, brought up the Hook Man. I'd heard of him before. Everyone had. But the version he told was different. He's not just some escaped psycho, Alex said. He was one of us, a camper. Got lost during a storm. The counselors waited too long to look for him, and by the time they found him, he'd already been out there for days. Something else found him first. Something that twisted his bones and carved a hook into his hand. Now he hunts anyone who stays too long in the woods after dark. Most of us laughed it off, except for one kid, Leo. He didn't say anything, just kept staring into the fire like he was trying to burn the image into his brain. I figured he was just creeped out. Maybe he didn't do well with horror stuff. Whatever. We all turned in eventually, one by one, crawling into tents scattered along the tree line. Sometime around 2 a.m., I woke up needing to pee. The woods were dead quiet. No wind, no frogs, no crickets. I stepped out of my tent and looked around. Leo's tent was open. The flap was hanging loose, like it had been unzipped and not closed again. I whispered his name. No answer. I walked over and peeked inside. Empty. Just his sleeping bag zipped up tight. But no Leo. I scanned the tree line and caught a faint shimmer. Something metal, reflecting the moonlight. It disappeared behind the trees before I could focus on it. I ran back to the fire pit. The ashes were still warm, but the fire had long since died out. I called for the counselors. No response. That's when I saw the first mark. A hook-shaped burn in the dirt, dragged in a circle around the ring of stones, like someone had carved it slowly, methodically, right into the ground. I crouched by the mark, too scared to touch it, too fascinated to look away. It wasn't just scraped, the dirt had been burned. Whatever had made it wasn't dragging metal across rock. It had left behind ash, heat, intention. I stood and backed away slowly. That's when I heard it. A sound I will never ever forget. Scrap. A long metallic draw across bark. It echoed from the tree line behind the tents, low and slow, followed by a crunch like boots sinking into pine needles. I turned and ran. I didn't scream. I didn't even breathe. Just sprinted blindly toward the counselor tents, heart thudding loud enough I thought it might give me away. When I reached them, I yanked open the first flap and froze. Empty. The beds were there. Sleeping bags, flattened out boots, neatly placed at the foot. But no people. No gear. Like they'd packed up and vanished while we were sleeping. I backed out and turned to the second tent. The flap was already open. Inside on the floor was a machete. Not bloody. Just placed. Perfectly aligned with the center of the tent. Next to it, a strip of fabric tied in a tight knot, with dried black rust around the edges. I picked it up. It wasn't fabric. It was part of a sleeve. From a jacket, with a seam blown open near the wrist, as if something had forced its way through the arm. That's when the fire pit behind me reignited. I turned just in time to see flames flare up out of cold ash, licking the sky with unnatural speed, and at the center of it, a shape standing still. It wasn't a camper. It was tall, angular, hunched at the shoulders with one arm long and dragging. I couldn't see a face, just a coat soaked dark at the hem, and the unmistakable gleam of a hook glowing red in the firelight. It didn't move. Not at first. Then its head tilted sideways, slow like a bird trying to gauge distance. I backed away, step by step, careful, trying not to make a sound. The second I turned, it was behind me. No sound, no wind, just there. The hook came down. I threw myself sideways, hit the dirt, rolled. Pain shot through my ribs, but I didn't stop. I ran. Ran through the tents, through the trees past where Leo's tent had been, only now his sleeping bag was gone. In its place on the flattened grass was a burn mark in the shape of a curled handprint. I don't remember getting back to the ranger station. Just light, blinding light, and voices yelling. They found me at dawn, half conscious, covered in ash and cuts. I was the only one left. Every other camper gone. No signs of struggle, no blood, just empty tents. Every single one burned from the inside, fabric melted outward, metal zippers fused shut. The fire inspector couldn't explain it, neither could the cops. But I knew. I still know. Because 2 nights ago, 10 years later, I got a letter. No return address, just my name written in black marker across the envelope. Inside a photo. Grainy, old, black and white. It showed a campfire, 10 kids sitting around it. All of us, but someone was standing behind me. Not one of the counselors, Not anyone I recognized. Just a tall figure coat brushing the dirt, one hand ending in a hook pressed gently against my shoulder. You made it through all 7. That doesn't mean it's over. If you've been listening closely, you'll notice no one ever sees his face. No one describes his voice. Only the hook. Only the shadow. Because the hook man isn't something you watch. He watches you. The reflection that didn't blink. The ring you couldn't trace. The sound you swore was just the wind. Now you know better. So if you hear something dragging outside your window tonight, don't check. And if you get a call at 3:03 a.m., don't answer. Because by then, you're already within range. Thanks for watching. If you want more stories like these, the kind that sit with you after the lights go off, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're brave enough to come back for the next one, subscribe. I'll be here, waiting.